Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the PAX Online speedrunning panel that is at every PAX, and we actually do promise that we will show a full run this time. Joining me are three very talented, wonderful individuals.
Why
That
is
did
that
not sound very
insulting?
convincing, but
You stumbled on the talented part. I liked it.
just roll with it. All right. Starting up above me here, Sam, TeaWrex. Over in the top other corner, we have SpikeVegeta. And over here on the other side, we have Studio. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, starting off here, like really easy, fun stuff. What brought you guys into speedrunning? Start off with you, Sam, if you don't mind.
Sure. I originally got into speedrunning because it was the first thing I found that was kind of online gaming content. It's kind of where I got my first start with realizing that there were people online who talked about games. I didn't really get started in forums. I got started on Twitch. So shortly after that, I joined the speedrunning community, submitted my own runs, all that kind of stuff.
I got into speedrunning all the way back in. A part of me always says back when I was a kid, I didn't have a lot of games growing up. So I remember having like Donkey Kong Country, Mega Man X, a few other games. And I would just like time myself at the clock above the Super Nintendo and be like, sure. That was a way to get replay value, I guess, in a way out of my single player games. I always thought it was kind of cool. Oh, I could beat Donkey Kong Country in like under an hour. That's cool. And then in 2004, I found a little known article, one page in Electronic Gaming Monthly that talked about Speed Demos Archive. That was back when there was 11 runs on Speed Demos Archive. Link to the Past in an hour 45. Metroid Prime 100% in an hour 40. Found that website as soon as I got home from school that day. I was in high school at the time, so you can tell I'm old. Back in 2004. And everything just kind of goes from there. Now that I think that website, I haven't been there in years, but that website has thousands of runs on it. Been a part of Twitch and speedrunning ever since.
On my end, it was definitely like something I was aware of. Like I would do time trials in video games, or like playing Pod Racer and trying to get first on some of those races, which I don't think was actually about speed as much as knowing like the AI was like something I would do. And so I actually got more involved and like aware of it in 2008, just because I had seen Speed Demos Archive, but I didn't know what it was called because the name doesn't really ring out to me, so I would never remember it. It would just be that speed website with the videos, and I would just like watch stuff from time to time when I would look it up. Like I remember I was staying at a friend's place trying to sleep, and I watched like Half-Life 2 speedrun for the first time because I went, that's going to be really cool. Yeah. And this is when the run was still like super underdeveloped compared to what it is now. And it was still just like this fantastic thing. So like ever since then, I just kind of was aware of speedrunning and like had been for like maybe 5 or 6 years. And then like started getting into it myself in 2013 when I watched a GDQ 2013 when I should start this. And then by the end of the year, I'd found a game I liked that had cool skips, that had cool breaks. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go fast at this because it's cool and I'll probably like it. And then, I did. It was
You
fun.
ran Half-Life 2 at HGDQ 14, didn't you?
I did. My time was the worst of all the Half-Life 2 runs, I'm pretty sure. But it was like the week after I did the run, they're like, "Hey, here's a billion new skips." And I just went, "Oh, that's cool. I wish I'd known that before."
For the record, it is not the worst Half-Life 2 time because I also have a Half-Life 2 time on record.
It's not the worst Half-Life 2. My Half-Life 2 time was extremely okay. It wasn't good. It was all right. Like it was high effort to get there, but it was like it wasn't I would say a terrible time where it's just like this person just doesn't know anything. It was very much like still I had improvement to do, but it was funnier because a lot of the stuff I knew just immediately got invalidated because it was just like, well, yeah, here's cool skips for all these cutscenes and new skips, and now we're like loading places and just like inching into the ground every time we save and load instead of watching a 10-minute cutscene. It's a fun one. It's good. Watch Half-Life 2 speedruns. Which we are not showing, by the way.
Surprise! That segues really well. So, Spike, why don't you tee up the run that we're going to be watching here?
Yeah, so we're going to be watching a speed run that I have done, but I have not done this one. We're going to be watching Donkey Kong Country 2 Any Percent. It's one of my favorite speed runs out there. I think it's an amazing game, and a lot of my favorite attributes of a speed run is when stuff feels very much varied in the run. It's not just you're good at platforming. No, you're doing lots and lots of cool stuff. You're seeing just the demo right now, but this shout outs to my good friend Supreme, who also does Donkey Kong Country 2 speedruns. This is a more up-to-date run of the any percent route. And we're gonna have that running in the background. We'll kind of point out stuff here and there, but mostly just enjoy my man rolling deep, as they say. He's gonna be warping through the first 2 worlds, doing some wrong warps coming up here in the second level. Just know wrong warping is a thing. They mess with the code a lot in the game effectively by making sure like things are in the correct pixel perfect positions. You'll see it right here. We'll watch this and then we can keep talking. Just take like 10 seconds.
You get a free magic show off to our side here as we're talking
right.
about speedrunning. It's going to be great.
He comes up, picks up the beetle, drops down. He clashes the beetle with another beetle. He has an invisible barrel in his hand, throws the barrel by rotating the camera in a certain way, and it warps him out of the level. It's great. So you're going to see stuff like that all throughout the run. But for there, we can let him just normally warp through most of the rest of the 2 worlds, and we can get back to talking.
So, Sam, you're no stranger to weird, broken runs either from your time, especially at GDQ.
Yeah, so in HDQ 2014, I actually had a 4-player cooperative run with Borderlands 2. In that game, on that patch we ran is really busted. So you're able to essentially run faster than vehicles, just on foot. You can actually have your hitbox drag behind you so much that you can get hit by a train that's like 2 football fields behind you. It's great. You have infinite damage, infinite life, infinite everything, basically.
Hot.
So yeah, it's a really fun run. I'm sure it's even more insane now because people have been grinding that time out for what now, 6 more years since we've been doing that. So I'm sure that run has got to be insane now.
That's a lot of passage of time to point out casually. Not a huge fan of that.
I'm like, listen, it's the truth.
Okay, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Do you remember the record back when you ran 4-player co-op? Rough ballpark?
So our 4-player co-op world record when we had it was 22150. So 2 hours, 21 minutes, 50 seconds. I guess. I'm assuming it's like an hour and a half now. An hour. Is it 40 minutes? I don't know.
I don't actually know. I'm trying to find where the 4-player leaderboard is.
I'm going to point this out very casually. I think the VOD we have includes a reset.
Oh, no.
Oh, it totally does. Yeah. Just skip to literally like 2 minutes into the run. Can you skip to 2 minutes in?
Spike, you betrayed me.
That's a real... this is what he's...
We're 3 minutes in now.
This is what he highlighted.
We're too far.
Hey, Spike, this is a great opportunity to talk about how difficult this game is to play because sometimes you have to reset it. What's that like, Spike?
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, hey, this is part of speedrunning. Exactly. Speedrunning, sometimes you reset. This is what you sign up for when you become a full-time speedrunner on stream. It's like, I remember being told when I wanted to go into acting, you're not really a professional actor. You're a professional auditioner that occasionally gets to act. You're not really a speedrunner. You are a resetter that occasionally gets to kind of see some more of your game. The boss that he reset to there in the first world, there's got a lot of RNG in it. It can throw fake eggs at you. You need the real eggs to smack them in the face. If he doesn't give them to you, you just lose lots and lots of time. So a lot of DKC2 speedrunners reset. I've vamped enough. Let's go into this level right here where they're going to be going for, I forget the name of this jump, but it's a jump. He's going to spin, jump at the last second, and get up into the barrel. I believe they call it luck jump. It's pretty crazy. But with that, he's only 1 level away. He'll fight the boss again, and we can get back into talking. So, GDQs, am I right?
GDQs. Oh, boy. Yeah, there goes my entire train of thought after that one. So,
TeaWrex just got done talking about Borderlands 2 and how it's probably super busted now.
It's not going fast.
Yeah. Studio, how's your going fast life going?
Okay, my going fast life. The whole life or just like the recent life?
Let's go recent life.
Okay, recent life. I actually have not speedrun a lot, just because of like work and life commitments. And it's one of those things where it's a very fun thing, but it's super time intensive. Like for Stranger's Wrath, I'm just gonna say 300 to 400 hours off the top of my head, just grinding away at that game, resetting. That was the first run I'd ever done. Half-Life 2 was in the hundreds as well. And so like the problem is what speedrunning is a kind of a hobby is that if you want to go for those top times in competitive games, you spend a lot of time just grinding and practicing and grinding and resetting and going, this run wasn't perfect. I'm going to be behind by 10 seconds. It might still be a PB. I might still get a better time, but like I need to be ahead by 5 of what I want to actually hit just to try and keep up and try and like stay competitive. So in terms of like, I have played through a couple games casually and gone, let me do this again but fast, or like learn some tricks. Like I was learning Outer Wilds, you can do it shipless, and I think it's just the funniest thing because you hurdle yourself through space with a drone that it's supposed to only give you like some visions, like some vision and hints of like where to look, and instead you're just propelling yourself back nonstop by firing it backwards. And so like that's cool as hell to me, but I know I will not get the world record on that because I just don't have the time and commitment that some of the runners do at this point.
I think I don't know how you feel about it. I think there's a certain amount, once you have a large grind in speedrunning where you feel like, oh, I did hundreds of attempts and I just kept wanting to get my time better and better. Maybe you were going for world record. Maybe you just felt like you wanted to go for a competitive time. I think you eventually hit the point where it's hard to get out of that mentality completely because speedrunning is what you make of it. Speedrunning could be as simple as, oh, I just want to learn where to go in Donkey Kong Country 2 or Half-Life 2 or Borderlands 2, all the twos. It's all about the twos in life. And I just want to learn where to go, and you'll get some sort of time off of it. I know it's hard for me to get into speedrunning and not have some sort of wanting to get decent at it, which no matter what will take a certain amount of time. So like you're saying, Studio, it's hard to just say, oh, this isn't going to be a massive time commitment. It always is. But we like doing it. Well, we're trying to not make it sound like speedrunning is terrible on this panel.
Well, to piggyback off of that, it's like you said that speedrunning is what you make of it, which is kind of, I think, an important part. Because for the most part, when you see on social media, like GDQ, stuff like that, a lot of the times there's a lot of discussion about what is the world record, or like what's this person's PB, where, for some people, that's really important. Someone wants to be incredibly competitive, but you can enjoy speedrunning just because, like Spike said, because you want to know where to go. You want to know the tricks. Just to enjoy a game that you maybe already love on a different level. It doesn't have to be something that is arduous or takes a lot of time. It can be that way, but it's not required to be that way.
I think for a lot of people, the best possible way to get into speedrunning is to find a game you love going back to again and again and again and again and again.
I think there is also something that actually, there's a baggage you pick up that can make it harder to speedrun because suddenly you have something that starts demanding your time more, which is, as I make friends in the speedrunning community for the game I play, and I start playing other games with them and start doing other things, it actually gets harder to run because I'll be like, well, I'd rather just play this other game with this group of people than learn a new game. And sometimes I don't want to play the speedrun game, so they'll be like, well, I'm going to start playing battle royales with some speedrun friends. And you're moving away from speedrunning, but you're taking the community with you. And I feel like that happens a lot too, where I'll see people who they met playing a game, they just play other stuff now, they just hang out now. And naturally, it's like, well, they don't always want to speedrun, they don't always want to speedrun the same thing. And that falls wayside to just kind of casually playing with your friends, which is a fun thing to do in my opinion.
Yeah, I've always described speedrunning as it's a really cool way to take a single player experience and take a single player game and make it a multiplayer experience. That all of a sudden, like, there's this massive community around, like, how do we go really fast in Borderlands 2? TeaWrex, you talked about how it wasn't just single player runs you did necessarily. It was 4-player stuff. Yeah. That was what you got to showcase at a GDQ. It's cool how you can think of speedrunning as a very cooperative thing in a lot of ways, not just in the playing of it, but also in the strat finding, in the routing process of the game. Just racing with other people, seeing who can get more consistent times and whatnot. That's really cool.
Well, plus we've seen with the emergence of like randomizers, especially, you mentioned how you're turning single player games into multiplayer experiences. That's like up there with the epitome of that example, where you're seeing these races where everyone is on the same level playing field, where, knowing a few more tricks might give you an edge, but it's still anybody's game, which is really approachable from a competitive standpoint for a lot of people. Like A Link to the Past is still kicking off. There's even like big RPGs like Final Fantasy 7. What's the one people are doing? Ocarina of Time randomizer. It's everything.
Yeah.
It seems
It's,
everything has a
honestly
randomizer
at
now.
this point, there might be a Borderlands randomizer for all we know. Literally,
it already
everything's
is.
getting
It already is randomized. Let's not do.
But I was like,
more
it
of
already
that.
is kind of built into
You don't
the game,
need
I
more.
guess, yeah.
The Borderlands randomizer known as Borderlands.
Yeah, that's
No, it's just playing the game.
And for anyone watching who maybe is wondering, what is a randomizer? A randomizer is we just take a game and all of a sudden we randomize everything you find. So take like a Zelda game, a classic Zelda game. The chest that you would normally get the hook shot in Ocarina of Time or Link to the Past or something. Now all of a sudden you open that chest and it's got a red rupee in it. But the hook shot's in some random chest out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the field, and you're trying to find your way through, which is a really interesting way. Again, TeaWrex, you brought, it's really good competitively for people wanting to get into randomizer. It's that much more accessible because it's that same sort of thing where if I go race against the best player in Super Mario 64 in simply, I'm going to lose to him 100 out of 100 times. It's like,
I mean, you don't know. You could maybe you'll have a transcendental experience. You know?
if his power goes out,
His
exactly.
N64 could explode.
It's possible.
Maybe
That's what
1 out of 100. Probably 100, but maybe 1 out of 100. But in randomizer, now all of a sudden, okay, there's so much more to it than just being good at the game. It's like, okay, how good is my routing? How lucky do I get in comparison to them? So if I play the best Ocarina of Time randomizer player in the world, I might win 15 or 20 times of those as someone who plays a decent amount of it. That's really cool, I think, to the average viewer coming in, where there's other aspects to be good at as opposed to just Twitch skill. I mean, like your ability to hit frames, be pixel perfect all over the place, everything in quick succession. It's also the routing process and sometimes just the roll of the dice.
Well, I think something that's kind of impressive
really
about all
good.
of that. It's just that
Go
it's
ahead.
essentially it's a live game. Like a randomizer to me, it's a different game than the original games. It's a live game being developed. There are developers for randomizers who take community feedback. Oh, they don't like this. We can try this solution. Like they are game developers. It's just that their engine, instead of being Unity or Unreal, is now Ocarina of Time
spaghetti from 25 years ago,
which is
right
incredibly cool. Like, I just need to reiterate how awesome that is. And it's just like, it's one of those things that I want to point out is that like it's super community driven too. Like this is the friends getting together to play. Like Spike, when you play Zooter or Ocarina of Time randomizer, how often are you playing by yourself? How often are you playing with a bunch of friends in a call going like, hey, let's do some dumb things in this 25-year-old randomizer that was released
right it's by and large it's races. I'll do them still here and there, like just for stream content. People like to just complete a puzzle, but yeah, for the most part it's with other people, seeing how I compare to them in races and whatnot. It's really cool. A very social thing you get into.
An extra thing just to mention that's a little behind the scenes thing is that there is a delay between all of us. So if one of us talks over somebody else, we're not intentionally trying to be rude. We're just accidentally rude.
It just comes naturally. Is what he's actually
I'm being
saying.
as rude as I can. I'm sorry. I'm here
But
to,
absolutely.
I was about to flip off the camera and I'm like this is technically a G stream. I don't know if that counts. So no, I'm going to hold back.
All right. Let's talk about something a little bit different. So, Sam's case and Studio's case, and in some ways in Spike's case as well, we've all sort of transitioned a little bit past just conventional speedrunning. And a lot of that, our experiences with speedrunning have sort of shaped and influenced us and really benefited us in a lot of ways. So why don't we talk about that for a little bit? Sam? Somebody?
Sure. I don't mind starting out. So just to give a little more background, since I didn't give it too much earlier on when we started, I started speedrunning back in 2013. I picked up a bunch of different games, but Borderlands 2 is the one that stuck. That was the one I picked up, learned, ran, got a world record in for a very small window of time, I'm sure. And then took to HDQ 2014. We had a time we were all happy with, like we talked about earlier. We were satisfied with what we'd done with the game at that point. And all of us were like, you know what? We did the AGDQ. We had a world record. Great, we're happy. And then we all kind of stopped running that game. Shortly after that, I kind of transitioned, because back then that was me purely doing it for fun. Speedrunning was a hobby. It was great to race for charity. Awesome stuff. Community driven. Then in the end of 2014, so basically about a year and a half-ish of broadcasting, I decided to become someone who was broadcasting more. It was no longer a hobby for me. That started with me playing Destiny, and I took the skills I learned from routing and the execution of Borderlands 2 and applied it to things like raiding in video games as well. And so now I have a world's first raid title in that video game and stuff like that that's helped kickstart my streaming career. And it's kind of what I'm usually known for, is things like that. But without speedrunning and the foundation of that community, I would have started with no viewers when I started doing more variety content. So speedrunning was a jump board for me to go and do other things now. So now I'm working with game dev companies for consulting. I'm doing advertising for them. I'm running my own broadcast. I'm running my own different kinds of shows. So without the speedrunning start and to get me onto Twitch, I would be nowhere. I would be just doing what I was doing back in 2013 without gaming on the internet.
Spike?
That's awesome. You are, yeah.
That's cool. That's cool as hell. Yeah. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, that's
before.
cool as hell. I'm glad you're able to find all
Thanks,
that
man.
success. So, and yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I've loved speedrunning for over 15 years now, and it's been great to be a part of the community. And I feel like probably out of all of us, I've stuck really close to the speedrunning community. But even myself, I have moved on to make streaming and entertaining probably the biggest thing possible. I real quick just want to point out, back over to the run, give you a little play-by-play right here. He's going to put himself on the spider, the hook, and the web all at the same time. Watch the screen scroll. This is the scroll. It pushes him really fast. He throws Dixie up in the air to extend him over that beat, and you just get a ton of speed and you go really fast. It's one of my favorite parts of the run. But back to, kind of what I've gone on to do. I feel like my stream, I've been streaming since 2012, and it was really all about speedrunning for a long time. The Rayman series, the Donkey Kong series, games like this, Final Fantasy IX, bunch of different stuff. And that was really all I did. And I think starting in about 2016, I started doing some bigger events, helping out a lot more with GDQs, doing events like Month of Mushrooms and Mayhem that I do with my good friend I Ate Your Pie, where it's a lot more blind races where we don't know. It's not a speed run. We don't know what we're doing going in. We're just racing it and seeing who can figure out some of these games in a casual fashion faster than each other. And doing a lot more just casual playthroughs and stuff on stream, which has been fun because I've gotten to play games like the Phoenix Wright series, other games visual novels that have involved me getting to kind of get in that actor itch. I grew up as an actor, studying that in theater and whatnot. So getting to do some very amateurish voice acting has been fun. And I feel like more than anything else, probably similar to you, Sam, I can describe myself as more of an entertainer than I am just as a speedrunner on Twitch, which I definitely think is obviously very helpful to being successful on Twitch, being multi-talented in that regard. But it's been nice sticking around GDQs as well, being able to run interviews and being able to put my voice in a place where it can be heard and it can support people in entertaining ways. So,
Also very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No one's allowed to think, Spike. I'm sorry. It's one of those things where it's like,
Right.
it's weird to be like, oh, it's cool, Spike, but I also know this about you. But it is actually really cool. So it's fun.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, it's
Where
like
we've
we were
gone,
talking
absolutely.
about earlier. We were talking about this before the call started about how I think it's really awesome that Spike has transitioned from being someone who was, speedrunning in GDQs to helping facilitate it running by, for a while doing donation reading. Now he's running interviews for the show and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's really awesome because if there's one thing that Spike's amazing at, it's talking. And he's using those skills very well now.
That powerful
Just
Southern
keeps
voice.
going. I'm sorry to everyone who has to listen to this. God.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. So my end, I'm actually gonna do the exact opposite involving GDQ. But like to summarize a lot, essentially in 2012, I had to leave college because I just didn't have the money. Financially, I was falling through, and I didn't want to take out very, very large student loans to continue education. I was going to Berkeley, super expensive school. I love that school a lot, but oh my god, it cost so much money to go there. And so I needed something to do at the time, so I actually went into League of Legends content production, which I think I had a time there. I had a place. Ended up being something that wasn't very sustainable, especially as Riot formalized their tournaments and made them more internal. So I ended up kind of moving to speedrunning. And after a while, like I'd been going to GDQs, and I went like, these are super cool events, but you got to realize in 2013, 2014, when I started attending, GDQs were not actually on the radar for a lot of people. Like it was one of those things where you would see one news article, and it would be after games when quick ended, and it would be like, wow, this random speedrunning marathon raised a bunch of money. Isn't that cool, guys?
Also, what's speedrunning? Because who the hell knows? It's 2014.
Right.
What's video game streaming? What?
Hello? People watch them play video games?
And you got to realize, like, HDQ 2014 raised $1 million. That was the first million.
Yeah.
That was the Wonder Shot way back when. And so like I was kind of surprised that like nobody was talking about this. So I actually went up to Romscott, who was leading GDQ at the time, and went like, hey, if you have a role, I want to just like talk to people and publicize GDQ and get people talking about GDQ before it happens. And so I ended up being one of the first like kind of staff members. It wasn't like a full-time gig, but it was my role to approach media outlets and get them to talk about GDQ in certain ways, release press releases. A couple times I would even pop up on stream myself, I stream myself to show off a game and be like, here's a speed run. I may not be the best at it because I learned explicitly for this, but here's a speed run, and watch games quick. So like I think there was one run that popped off a lot on IGN where I think I broke Pokemon, and then another where I broke Super Mario Brothers 3. Like those ended up getting a couple million, like a million views or so, I think. And I think IGN actually now has like a department that of speedrunning, or like at least a guy that like hires speedrunners to do runs for them. And I'm pretty sure that's because I showed up and said I want to do speedruns to promote GDQ.
I think I've seen not the actual runs, but I've seen like the recommended of like IGN where it's like a recently popular game and it's like done in time. So that's accurate. I'm pretty dang sure.
Developer commentary as well, and we'll get to that a little bit later, because the other run we're going to show is The Outer Worlds, and IGN did a devs react to The Outer Worlds speed run, and it's very, very good content. It's very entertaining, and I would highly recommend checking it out.
It's like watching astrologers track a meteor, honestly, is how I would describe it. It's like everything's really like, oh, this is fascinating. What are they going to do now?
One of my favorite memories of all time was, I think it was HDQ 2015. I was given the honor of being on the couch for PJ and Mecha Richter for Battle Block Theater, and we actually, I was all involved in this. Somebody got Stamper and I think Dan Paladin from Behemoth to be on a phone call while they speedran the game, and that is one of the funniest things of all time. Not because of me. Stamper and Dan are amazing, and so are PJ and Mecha, and like I think it's a really amazing moment when you get to actually have that interaction between developer or voice actor or someone who was on the project, who maybe knows the game, because they were a part of the project from a long time, but when they see it kind of done in creative and interesting, maybe unintended ways, it's just a really awesome dialogue to see.
Yeah, it's really cool to see when developers, because there's a lot of ways you can go. I know of developers who are very, I don't know if I want to use the word offended, but they're thrown off at the very least by like, oh, they have absolutely cracked my game in half. Why did I let that get through testing? This and that, whatever. It's my baby. And I love when a dev's just like, oh, that's hilarious. Oh, what? Oh. You can do that? So, yeah, it was really cool. The Battletoad, or the
That's cheating.
Yeah. That Battle Block run is still probably one of the 10 greatest marathon runs of all time. An absolute
so funny.
So to piggyback off that, the developer side, I actually eventually left GDQ because while I actually really liked the job and it was really fun, it wasn't full time, and they never said it was going to be like you'll be set for the year if you work these 2 events.
Sure.
But I ended up getting a job in gaming, and I actually moved from Games That Quick to a mobile developer doing production. And a lot of the reason I got that original role was because I would talk to people and they'd be like, "Oh, I know Games Done Quick," and like that wasn't my original goal when I got a job at GDQ. Was like, I'm going to use this to work in mobile games, because that's not I think the expected transition. But just the fact that like people knew what GDQ was, known had what I had done there was enough to get me like a essentially not really related to my role position, going from media relations to production, which is all organizing and all just like a lot of just making sure people are doing the right thing. And that was entirely because I had been at GDQ, and like it made that transition much easier than other alternatives. It also means when people ask, how do I get into games? I don't have a good answer. I'm like, work at GDQ for a few years and then go somewhere else.
Right.
It's not
Go somewhere where they've heard of GDQ afterwards. Flawless strategy. 100% success rate.
Yeah.
I do really enjoy hearing about people from speedrunning then transitioning into the industry as a whole. We have a good friend of ours, Muncha Koopas, who speedran Shovel Knight for years, the indie darling from Yacht Club Games, and then after a while was a top runner of it at GDQs and whatnot. Yacht Club Games was like, "Oh, do you want to do QA testing for us? You seem really good at that. You seem like you would be really good at that." So it's cool seeing people transition from speedrunning, because I think you have to understand video games as a speedrunner almost better than the developers did on such a minute level to be able to go as fast as humanly possible. You have to understand it to a very nerdy degree. And we like being nerds.
To be distinct about this, let's have some conflict. You have to understand the mechanics as they exist, but not necessarily as they were designed. If you get what I mean? Because if you're a speedrunner, you don't really care. It's like, hey, is this fun? Well, you care that it's fun, but you're not going, hey, does this exist for a reason and it's fun? As a designer or developer, you're going to be like, well, this should have some sort of intentional thing. Or like eventually, I think you hear this a lot where a speedrunner goes like, oh, this game was like, it's so buggy. The QA department should have caught this. They should have fixed this bug. And you see this a lot with like really obscure, hard to do bugs. And it's like, well, they didn't catch it because you spent 400 hours as a community breaking into this game. It's like
tearing this.
They just don't have the
top of that,
time.
well, plus up of that, it's like maybe it's just budget, right? Like to where they don't they have, let's say, 2 months out until it's like we have to have the final product. We have, let's say, 30 bugs. We know we can only feasibly fix 20. Which 20 are we fixing? Probably the ones that like crash your game or make the game unplayable, soft lock you. And then versus like, oh, did you know that when you drop a gun 30 times, you can run like a fighter jet? We didn't fix that one.
Because we didn't think anybody would run into it.
Our bad.
Yep, there's like a combination of severity and occurrence, and if one of those, if severity's low, occurrence is high, it might get fixed. Probably not though if it's a minor enough bug, unless people think it'll be impacted, like audiovisual stuff, for example, where it's a little off, might get fixed because people might get annoyed by it pretty quickly. But if it's like, yeah, here's this really severe obscure bug, and it's not like a live game like an MMO or an FPS, and it's like, hey, it's almost impossible to do, but it doesn't ruin the game, then you probably don't fix that. The game breaking stuff, I think, is the stuff that gets fixed the most.
And just to reiterate about like my experience with Borderlands, in that specifically, we actually had to back patch the game because they already had fixed a lot of the things we were using at the time. And so we actually had an old version of the game we were running, our speedrun off of because it was the most entertaining, the most fun. So, I don't think any of us are here trying to dump on developers. No one thinks that they don't work hard to make these amazing things we get to enjoy. It's just interesting. The amount of time we have versus they did for some of these things is probably very indicative as to why we're able to do what we do sometimes.
And to that point, go ahead.
I would say usually, pretty commonly, estimates are done in days or in hours in game development. And bugs, I expect bugs, depending on how large they are, quite a lot of them to be done closer to the hour territory. Depends on the game, depends on the studio, depends on like a million different factors though. So like and people will just churn through bugs nonstop. Like people spend months just fixing and improving a game. And the problem is once you run into those bugs that are esoteric or harder or just like, confusing, you start hitting the days, you start hitting the you know, maybe this will be a couple days investigation and then a couple days to fix, and people just go like, yeah, we can't do that. We don't have the time, we don't have the money, we have an agreement, and if we don't, this publisher is going to come yell at us and say like, what are you guys doing? And we'll miss a milestone. It's like there's a cascading effect.
Games
so
are
it's one of those
tape and magic.
Yes, it's actually it's something kind of cool where essentially it's speedrunners really exploit the fact that games aren't perfect, and I think that's a good thing because it's such a different way to appreciate the game, and it's such a cool way to actually end up enjoying it. Is these are essentially mistakes that we felt like that mistakes that made it in that couldn't be fixed for whatever reason, and we're doing cool. I'm gonna say many curse words to describe it, but cool things instead of curse words.
Right.
We're doing all these cool,
some of my
unique
favorite
speedruns.
Some of my favorite moments in games are the bugs, though. We had this really weird issue in Destiny where, for a while, if you shot your foot while you were standing in water, you would damage yourself. So we just called it splash damage, and it was hilarious. Like stuff like that. This just just fantastic. Yeah, it makes you appreciate the game more. Funnily enough.
Yeah, it's like it's not that speedrunners hate or developers hate speedrunners using bugs. It's just that it's that dichotomy of just weird perspective. Bugs are awesome when they're funny. When they break a game and you can't play, I think everybody just hates that because it sucks.
One of my favorite little quirks about speedrunning you bring up, like sometimes like there's something endearing about a game having these busted features to it. Sonic 06 is just an atrocious excuse for a video game. But my God, does it have a love letter from the speedrunning community that is its speedrun? It's actually an amazing speedrun because of how unbelievably busted it is. Anybody who watches GDQs, Awful Games Done Quick is a lot of times the most popular stuff. Studio, you've done at least a run or two of it. You've watched Awful Games blocks for a long time. So much goofy stuff, so much fun we can have in it. And yeah, sometimes that is drawn out of just like the smallest, dumbest things that can happen in a game, and sometimes the worst video games.
It's a lot of games where it's like, yeah, this company made it possibly to launder money, possibly just because like someone paid them $50,000 and gave them like four weeks.
Just shovelware.
It's some garbage. You know, it exists for a reason that is like it needs to exist, and not like because it's it's not high effort. And those games, usually what they happen is they exist, they get released, everybody forgets about them because nobody cares about them, there's no marketing, and they're gone forever. And like these are like pirated games. This one I played is Alpha Xylon, which was published by the same people who did Big Rigs,
I was gonna bring up Alpha Xylon.
One of the worst games ever made. And like I have found so much enjoyment out of speedrunning Alpha Xylon just because it looks so funny, and we should get Alpha Xylon VOD. But just like the expression of people when they see a man, I'm just gonna say air hump incredibly quickly to get maximum speed, and just like it's just such a fun like emotional ride for a game that like people would have just forgotten about, except for the fact that it was bad.
That is that game's legacy. All of a sudden, it's just how bad it is, but it's bad in a funny way.
So unfortunately, I can't pull up an Alpha Xylon VOD, but you all have.
Believe it or not, I didn't just have one of those in my back pocket. Like,
also, it's not my
funny
VOD.
Enough, Alpha Xylon. My God.
Yes, there's a level called Rooftops in Alpha Xylon. I'd highly recommend just watching that. That explains enough.
It doesn't need to be a speed run. Yeah,
it's 50 seconds long.
There's a GDQ VOD where the sound doesn't work in the game properly, and I don't blame GDQ for this because, of course, it doesn't work properly. And I essentially couldn't finish it in any sort of realistic way. So the game doesn't actually finish, but watch that VOD. It's a good VOD.
One of my favorite experiences is still watching Mike Uyama play Super Hydolide, or it was Super Hydolide, not virtual Hydolide, because that's also visual
amazing.
Nightmare. Oh my God!
It's also been done. Yes.
I have a headache. I can't watch that game. Oh, yeah. It does not compute in my eyeballs. It just doesn't.
It just looks like a big old bag of turds. But we love it.
I mean, I think that's the secret to speedrunning, is that like these games are terrible, and it's such a it's a bunch of friends hanging out to just watch this game be played really well, but in such a way that it just collapses, and like that's fun.
Yeah,
for good games that's fun. For
celebrating
bad games,
imperfection.
Like, super fun.
Celebrating imperfection is like the grade A way of sending pure joy somewhere, you know, because everyone can relate to things not working out, especially now.
And people, yes. And people just need to also accept that, like, I've always told them, speedrunning, they have this emotional response when they watch a speedrun of, well, why would you break the game? Oh, what's the point? You're cheating at that point. It is a different art form. We're taking the game and we're not looking at how you want us to play it casually whatsoever. We're taking whatever the zeros and ones are within that game, and we're creating our own art form off of it. Some great video games, like Donkey Kong Country 2, a great video game, turns out to be a good speedrun. Other games that are great casual games aren't great speedruns because we don't, after a while, you don't just want to watch the same thing. Yeah, they're too perfect. You don't want to just watch what you can watch on YouTube, but be done slightly faster and more informed, than you did on your first playthrough. No, you want to see, like, what's happening here? How are they able to do that? Okay. Those are the moments we show up for.
My favorite VOD to introduce people to speedrunning to is a circa 2017 Portal speedrun of Inbounds.
Oh, sure.
Because it's the most perfect blend of completely broken, but still like sensible enough to where, like, okay, I can walk people through, like, it's like 15 minutes long or something like that at that point. And it's this bizarre catastrophe of clipping through walls and the screen freaking out, and suddenly you're at the last boss and all of the personality spheres have just fallen off of her. And what the hell happened? Because this took me 4.5 hours back when I played it originally, and someone just crushed this game in 15 minutes.
Plus, source games are just oddly satisfying to see speedrun, period. Like Portal, you mentioned Half-Life earlier. Like, they're just like, the movement tech is so beautiful when it's done properly and so fast. It's yes, love it.
I want to give a special shout out here. So we're recording this on the 21st?
21st, yeah.
At the time,
Correct.
GDQ is ongoing. And so yesterday, GDQ had its first virtual reality speedrun. And it was Half-Life Alyx. And
I remember.
Yes, I was going to shout this out earlier. I'm glad you're doing it. Yeah.
The most incredible just manipulation of every single possible mechanic. Because VR adds this whole special extra level of speedrunning. And where your physical body can now defy barriers as defined in the game. And you see that there's a couple games do this, but Alyx is just something special. And go watch this VOD. Because I think, what did you describe it as, Studio?
Oh, it's speed calisthenics. Like, essentially the runner, buffet time, is just constantly like jumping up, crawling on the floor, reaching up. Just like, he's just moving around the entire screen. I wasn't watching the game. I was watching him because I'm just like, what's he going to do next?
Oh, yeah.
Is he going to do a push-up? Is that a thing? Do you have to do a push-up for the run? But like, there's just so much going on.
There was one point he clips through this like train yard, and you see him get down on the ground, and he has to just literally, I am not over exaggerating this, just move his head from left to right all of a sudden so he can wiggle his way out of bounds to get to wherever he had to go. It was one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen, not just in speedrunning, I think in my entire life, that this was the extent we went to for this level of entertainment and also just optimization within our craft. Totally shout out that Half-Life Alyx run from Summer Games Done Quick 2020. So
probably
good.
A good workout too. Like, he's probably like,
you got it.
Yeah. You don't need Ring Fit anymore. You got VR speedrunning.
I'm pretty sure it's actually easier to get a Valve Index in North America than it is to get a Ring Fit right now anyways, so.
I mean, it costs like $8.
There you go.
So I hope it'd be.
They cost the same. You don't look it up.
Don't worry about that. Oh, man. And so just stepping back for a second here. So we talked about earlier about like sort of like how things can evolve over time. And that's really true for a lot of speed runs, where like the route is constantly evolving. The community is constantly evolving and changing and discovering new crazy things. And like Ocarina of Time is a really cool example of this, because back there was run was declared as dead and done and beaten. And over time, more and more stuff continues to be found. and it's a really cool process of iteration and development and community involvement.
It's very neat because you'll hear it once a year. Like, this run's done. Wait for it. Wait a year. Wait till somebody looks at some weird code that you didn't know about.
Yeah. If you have not watched an Ocarina of Time speedrun for the last basically year, that game kind of got broken again. Just as soon as they think it's dead, like you're saying, Studio. You can beat that game in about 4 minutes. 2 of it's the opening cutscene. You might wonder, how do they do that? There's a video out there somewhere you can watch. It's probably got a few million views on it. Yeah, it's weird. You won't understand what's going on at all. But yeah, we're getting to the point where speedrunning, all 80% runs are just going to be, all right, I can just ace my speedrun.
Well, it's actually that's like a very
arbitrary code execution.
That's a very fun difference between kind of older games and newer ones. Is that newer ones tend to be a lot, they're a lot more complicated, and everything's organized just in better ways. So you're not able to like just kind of go like, yeah, I found the memory value for this one thing. Let me just go ahead and flip this switch because I somehow represented it in game. Like Super Mario Land 2 is my example. Is you could find a representation of a memory value by going out of bounds, and the game doesn't know what to render, so it's just grabbing random stuff. And essentially go, well, let me just destroy this block, and the next screen I load will load the ending. And so like that's not something you can do in Ori and the Blind Forest. Like there's no memory blocks just lying around going like, this is the ending. This triggers the ending cutscene if you hit this. That's kind of like the evolution over time. Speedrunning is newer games don't have that, but they tend to have a lot more features for speedrunning, and then you have a lot more like out of bounds. You have a lot more world to break. But the older games have just like all this memory manipulation, all this like, yeah, we've mapped everything, and we know exactly what precise values to hit, and we're making it appear in game, which is absolutely bonkers. Like it's not this is not a hit against either new or old games. They're both awesome to watch. They're just they're unique.
Just because we're coming, I think near the end of this speed run. Is there anything else you want to point out with DKC2, Spike, before it maybe wraps up?
No, shout out to my boy Supreme, who's 1 minute and 12 seconds ahead of his splits, and is about to get looking like his first ever 41. He almost completely skipped a 42 if he didn't have it right here. But yeah, lots of super cool strats he's able to pull off here. Again, we wanted to have it something in the background. I think it's a very showy run. I like for you gentlemen, what are your favorite aspects of a good speed run? We've talked about how it's how it can be broken. I like how this one is varied. I like how you have to be good at moving both Diddy Kong and Dixie here. You also have to be good at moving your animal buddies, but also how to do these crazy wrong warps and everything. There's a lot of different mechanics you have to be good at in these games. TeaWrex Studio, Jovo, what attracts you to a speedrun, I guess?
I think for me, I'm looking for these like really special, like technical or like visual moments. And so what's always attracted me about source runs in particular, it's like that was one of my first introductions to the speedrunning community was through source runs and that whole crowd. And so with that, it's like the first door you clip through in Portal, or the first time you ABA or watching like a boatless in Half-Life 2. That stuff blows me away every single time I watch it. And it's just those special little moments of like, okay, that was incredible. You just blew through this massive segment of the game. And what's next?
Yeah. I think it's like stuff like the visual impressiveness is absolutely part of it for me. But it's interesting because I like so many different kinds of speedruns. I mentioned how much I love watching like PJ play games. He plays these really obscure, strange games and then does the weirdest stuff with them sometimes. Because he knows way too much about this game that potentially no one's ever heard about, or, you know, people have forgotten. And I think it's just nice kind of hearing about something that I knew nothing about and seeing the beauty in it. And then there's the other part to where I'm with Jovo too. We're seeing someone do something absurdly technical. So recently the GDQs have been doing like Mario Maker races, where people are putting together these absurdly difficult stages to where it's less about glitches and exploits. It's more about understanding the fundamentals of the game so well that you can do things that almost look like they're unintended, but the game's actually programmed so well that it works every time, like consistently. So it really just depends on kind of what I'm in the mood for. But I guess
Sure.
I'm easily impressed, I guess, with speedrunning, which I don't think is a bad thing. So
That's awesome.
Woo, Supreme! Yeah, Supreme, good run.
Yeah, yo, nice. 41-45, my boy. That's a great time, by the way.
He did it.
sorry,
World PAX
I
record.
was Twitch chat for a second.
Big pog.
Big Pog champ.
All right, we're gonna go
Big
straight
Pog
into Outer Wilds here, just because we are only
who's
about 10
that
minutes
guy?
left.
He's not in
I
the
thought you
call.
caught-
Who's that
You
guy?
caught yourself. And then, jeez. It's Outer Worlds.
Outer
we actually
Worlds.
might not get through all of this.
Yeah, we're gonna go do it anyways. Here we go. Studio
okay,
tee us
cool.
off.
All right, Outer Worlds. This is the start of the run. Essentially, as you can tell by the timer, Outer Worlds is actually kind of a very straightforward run in that it's about getting from point A to point B to progress the story as quickly as possible. And so a lot of the run is just optimized around like getting the bare minimum you absolutely need to possibly progress. Like you don't pick up a gun, you just use your default pistol for the run, or the first pistol for the run that you acquire. You don't like kill enemies. You don't do a lot besides progress the story and then do some glitches to progress the story even faster. And like this is very much a more modern run, not the most broken of kind of open world games like this, but just something that's about 15 minutes long, so it fits in the time slot, kind of. Yeah. So what you're going to see is just a lot of B-run to NPCs, going through the faster dialogue options, and then kind of doing things weirdly. Like I'm going to get to the ship here, and instead of like talking to people or fighting anything, you run by it. It's like I'm not going to die because I know how much damage these enemies can do. And I know how to run past them, so they can just hit me a lot, and I'll take it. Yeah, I don't mind. You just beat me up a bit, and then I'll be like, instead of leaving by a door, I'll fast travel to avoid a cutscene. Instead of going the normal route to a big city, I'll be going somewhere to pick up fast travel points. All right, that'll set us up for a couple minutes.
You may think that this is just a game that fills the time slot, but I do think it's a really good job of showing the different types of speedruns that exist. Because we went from what I would assume to be a very technical game. I haven't played DKC for speedrunning purposes, but it looks very technical. To a game that feels it has technicality to it, but it's much more about the path and like the routing that's gone into it. So all of the behind the scenes planning is much more front and center with this than it was with like DKC, to where it's much more like he is missing every enemy somehow, and then he's in the third world. How did
There's gonna be a 2-minute period where suddenly I'm gonna be very, very far ahead in the game, and it's gonna be very surprising. But like, and this was a game where I helped kind of small portions of the route. I was definitely trying my own thing, but the Outer Wilds community popped up and just started like hacking away at this game pretty quickly. So it's like I've got my contributions. There'll be one moment where I'm very, very proud of, which I think we should hit. But yeah, this was very much a game the community picked up, drove into very quickly, and then I think within a week it was under 30 minutes for the run, and then within 2 weeks it was under like 13. So this is a game that people, I think, this is not the longest open world game, but it's still a long open world game. Like it's still probably going to be a good like 15 to 20 hours for most first playthroughs, and even casually going through after probably like a good 3 to 4 if you rush the story. So this is a fun run. It's about that optimization. It's about everything being kind of pre-planned in very specific ways, and you have to know what to do at all times. I'll say it's going back to an old question about like what people like about speedrunning. This is one that I like just for that flow, that technicality. This is not a run I would watch a lot, for example, but it's one where it's just kind of, to me, it's interesting. Where it's like, well, what do you do this? Why do you do this?
It's your one-time watch. Be like, how do?
Yeah.
Because it just sounds intriguing, right? Because you said this is a 15, 20-hour game. Wait, you're gonna go beat it in 12 minutes? Wait, what?
And it's not super crazy. Like it's very much just very, very good abuse of the mechanics. Like it's not a lot. There's not a ton of glitches. I guess to talk about the route here, we go to Reed to unlock the main quest, which you need to do to leave the first planet. Like that's the goal here, is leave the first planet. We don't need to do anything else. And I unlocked this fast travel point because it's faster to go here than return. And so my goal here is to essentially trigger the story cutscene, and I know the mechanics. I know exactly what needs to trigger before I can leave. And I have it now set up where I'm going to run through a bunch of enemies, activate a bunch of switches, and that will set me up to just kind of leave cleanly without any enemies interrupting my actual departure, because you can't fast travel with enemies around, and without any real blockages. Like it's clean, it's surgical, it's very precise. But compared to a Half-Life 2, where you're just bouncing around everywhere, it's like, that's cool. I'll watch Half-Life 2 a lot, but that's because the basic movement in Half-Life 2 is a challenge, and it's a lot more interesting. Which, like, this to me, like, it's surgical. Half-Life 2 is the top runners are surgical, actually, but it's just naturally very imprecise because there's so much variation from movement. Well, this is not this was not the world record at the time. It was pretty close, but a lot of it it's about that precision, that just like, this is as exactly right as it can be. Like here, it's you leave the area to reset aggro, so I can activate a terminal, so I can then leave through a different door, fast travel away, and essentially trigger leaving the first planet. Which,
like I said, it's that overwhelming game knowledge, which you see in like other runs too, that maybe people might find less interesting because maybe it's slower, because it's not your Half-Life, it's your people doing Final Fantasy VI, for the finale of the GDQ or something like that, where it's maybe 5-6 hours. But there's something about it to where maybe it's a game you've loved for a long time, and even if the run is a long time, you're like, but this took me 80 hours. How is it happening in 3, right? Like typically, like that's like the starting point of you're doing something that took me X amount of time, far shorter than what I expect. And there's always that just intrigue there. Like that's what got me into, I would say, really deep into speedrunning, was seeing all this stuff for the first time and then being like, oh wait, you could beat Ocarina of Time in like what, 15 minutes? What? How? And then you see it and you're like, that's fascinating. Right? So I think that even if the run may not be as technically intriguing, it still can be interesting in its own right.
Yep. I love routing in speedrunning so much. Go ahead, Studio.
I was going to say, if you want to be impressed, but if you don't watch RPGs, I'm not a huge RPG guy. Watch Final Fantasy players and their menuing. Because the amount of skill and speed and memorization it takes to navigate those menus is just such a level of impress that like you don't realize till you realize how many inputs they're doing and how quickly they are and how many
Can we talk
options
about
they have.
How amazing it is that they can play it in different languages and not be phased ever. Like ever.
It's
right.
It's
amazing.
They know it. Unless it changes, which that would be awful if you had to like learn the language routes. Oh, this is the Spanish route. Like everything is off by like 3 buttons or 4 buttons. It depends. And they'll know it too. Like that's what's great. What's fun about a lot of these runners is they just know this. Really quickly, there was a glitch to duplicate a bunch of speed boosting items. So for the rest of the run, you get speed boost. It's nice. It's makes you go a little faster. It's worth the time it takes to go ahead and actually duplicate all the items, because it does take about like 30 seconds, and it saves you like 20 by the end of the run. And yeah, so like if you played Outer Worlds, I was gonna say Wilds, you'll know like I returned the cell. I'm able to lie to Reed to let me take it, and it's very much the story beats, just done as succinctly as possible and as efficiently as possible. We'll hit some skips in a bit. I'll point at the big skip though.
All right, we are actually just about running out of time. Unfortunately, we got about 3-ish minutes left. So,
what point is he jumping to?
I think we actually, if you go ahead by like a minute and a half.
Minute and a half, I can do that.
Let's see.
7.
Oh, actually, this is perfect. Okay,
wonderful.
So this is the biggest skip in Outer Worlds, at least when I was speedrunning it. It's about slightly old. You essentially have to do a whole lot of plot to get through it. You gotta do a lot of plot to get through the rich place. But if I try and pickpocket this guy, he's gonna run at me. If I run to this door, he's gonna open the door and then talk to me, and he's yelling at me, going like, "What are you doing? Why are you robbing me?" And that interaction is put in the game because when you enter this door for the first time for realsies, that guy's supposed to surprise you when you leave and come back and are entering the area, because you're not supposed to go there. It's supposed to be like, "Hey, you got caught. What do you do?" And it was something the developers put in like as a one-time thing. No NPCs walk around open doors in this game, as far as I remember. Like it just does not happen. And that one little interaction is able to be abused if you get him to walk to that door while not in combat. So by running up, trying to just rob him in plain daylight, and then running to that door, it triggers him to open the door because they did not look for that interaction. And that's an interaction that, like, they should look for, really, if they think to, sure, but like it's such a minor thing. And like that's actually on the game development side, to tie that back into that, that's one of those risks of like last second changes is there's a weird edge case and we found it, and we're exploiting it, and it's cool as hell. Like I like it. The developers seem to be pretty big fans of it. To check the IGN video again. Again, that I actually found. Not that he opened the door, but I found the routing for pickpocketing him. Before we used to like kill a bunch of guards to get him to reset and run away. Like it was like a whole thing, and I'm just like, I eventually found we're just gonna rot him. We're just gonna take his stuff and call him a nerd, and then we're gonna go ahead. He's gonna open the door. It's gonna be great.
All right,
That's hilarious.
We have about 1 minute left here, so I'm gonna quickly go back to the big cams, and I'll get your guys' final thoughts, like messages for the speedrunning community. Anything you guys want to talk about real quick? Go.
Speedrunning is very fun.
Yeah. Even though we're not as active, we're still really active in the community. Like I hang out and talk to speedrunners all the time, and like I'm not going to GDQ is actually one of the biggest like downers for the year for me, because I love the event, I love the people I see there. So, you know, the friends are forever, even if you don't run as much, and the runs are still pretty cool too, to be quite honest. Okay.
Yeah, speedrunning community gave me a career, so I can be nothing but grateful and talk about how amazing they are. If you want to get into speedrunning, do it, please. You're gonna be happy.
Fun.
Yeah, there's thousands of cool speed games out there and thousands more cool members of that community who will be there to help you learn whatever you want to learn, whether it's DKC2 or Outer Worlds. All the tools will be there for you.
All right, that's a good note to end on. Thank you guys so much for joining me for the panel. And
Thank you.
Yeah, get yourself speedrunning.